And so, yes, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. I'm Renee Chow. I am on the board for the Leadership Columbia Alumni Association. And pretty sure that probably all here are familiar with that, but just in case, that is a organization of alumni members from the Leadership Columbia program that is run by the Chamber. And it's a great way for leaders to have leadership development. And we try to do continuing education and networking opportunities for all of our alumni. One of those opportunities is the power session that you're on, which is just a great way to have 30 minutes for, just to dive deeper on topics related to Columbia, related to leadership development, or we've done yoga meditation kind of things too, or desk yoga and stuff like that. But today we're going to dive into the topic of giving. And obviously as leaders, we are giving back to the community with our time. A lot of people are on boards or in some type of volunteer capacity. So you're used to giving your time, but you're more than likely also giving your dollars. And so how can you use, have some financial giving strategies that both, help you as a person, but also help you to give to the best of your abilities. And so today we have Robert Kopp with us. He is a financial advisor with Thrivent. And he's been doing that for a couple of years now after a career in working for nonprofits. Prior to this, he was at Able, South Carolina as the Director of Advocacy and Community Access. And he also holds a Master of Social Work from the University of South Carolina, as well as a degree in psychology from Erskine College, which is where Robbi and I met. Well, actually didn't meet there. We met in high school, but that's a longer story. But we became really good friends in college. And so he's one of my favorite human beings, and I'm happy to pass this over to him to help us with our financial planning strategies related to giving. So Robbi, take it away.
Renee, I don't want to interrupt, and Robbi, sorry, but there was a bad link in the original invite.
Yeah.
But I think they sent out another email, but that may be why people in. So
we sent everybody an updated link that registered, so everybody should have that now.
Perfect. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we'll probably will have some people filtering in with that. And just another housekeeping note to we'll save some time at the end for questions and everything. So please, as we go through, drop them in the chat, but we will wait until save 5 minutes until the end for those questions. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Renee. I'm so glad to be with y'all. As Renee mentioned, I am Robbi Kopp. I'm a financial advisor with Thrivent, and I came to financial advising from nonprofit leadership. So my approach is a little bit different, but it's really rooted in when we are doing well financially, the causes that we care about can do well financially as well. So there's a lot of strategies. We're going to go over some strategies together as we talk about how do we make sure that we're making the impact that we want to make with the causes that matter the most to us. And maybe at the end, we can have people guess how Renee and I met in high school. That could be fun. But I'm glad to be with y'all. As we talk a little bit, I'm going to be painting with pretty broad strokes. None of this is intended as personal financial advice. We're just going to talk about some strategies. It'll be up to you to determine if it's the right fit for you. If you want to have a more direct conversation one-on-one, happy to do that and get to know you a little bit better. But first, Renee kind of touched on this, that in Leadership Columbia, you all are participating in projects, activities. You're already leaders. You're working towards having the title of Leadership Columbia graduate alumni. So there's three ways that we often talk about how do we make an impact, how do we give, and we have different access to different resources. Sometimes we have lots of time. I don't know if y'all are feeling it, but this part of the year in May, as school is about to let out, I don't know that anybody feels like they have a ton of time. We also have talents, our skills, the things that we're especially good at, or our vocations, things that we make a living doing, and we have our treasure. Each of these three things we can give in different ways, right? We can give our time through volunteering one time and never doing it again. We can give our time by volunteering on a regular, ongoing basis with activity. We can do the same with our talents and with our treasure. I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time talking about the treasure side of things. There's kind of some quick tips, and then there is one tool that does not get very much attention. And I just want to make sure that you know that it's there and how it can be used to help you be a more efficient giver, a more consistent giver as well. So with that, if it's cool, I may ask for a little bit of participation as we go. I'd love to hear about the causes that matter to you. As we talk about giving, are there organizations that you give to already or organizations that you want to give to? Y'all feel free to fill up the chat. I'd love to see it. We've got with treasure and dollars, it really all comes down to our priorities, right? Every dollar that we spend is a dollar that we assign to our values. And I think a lot of times we miss what that really means because we really want that cup of coffee, or we are just moving too fast and grabbing food where we can. But the real takeaway is every dollar that we share, every dollar that we give, every dollar that we spend, it is a testament to what matters to us. So with that, there's a lot of really tried and true steps that folks often take with their with savings, as an example. So if you're trying really hard to save, then you may set up automatic savings where you're saving a set amount every week, every couple of weeks, coinciding with pay periods, or every month, but you're doing that on an ongoing basis, and you're doing it in a way that you don't feel the effects. It's automatic. You don't see the declining balance in your checking account because of the way that you save. And we found that that's a really effective strategy for saving well. The same can be true for our charitable giving. When we raise the priority of our giving, when we say our targets are, we want to give to this organization, we want to make sure our savings are in line, we want to make sure we're saving for longer term goals, that changes fundamentally how our money gets allocated. For people of different faiths, a lot of times there's measures for how much money they're expected to give or they want to give, and where they give from. And this really aligns with those principles. If we plan for our giving first on an ongoing basis, or we plan for our giving in equal standing with our savings, we're much more likely to give consistently and for it to not sting as much when we do give. And that's a really helpful tool. So other tools that folks use from a saving standpoint, also, it works really well for giving. So let's say in your employment, you're meeting all your expenses, things are going pretty well, you're meeting your target savings rate, and you get a cost of living adjustment, or you get an increase, or you get a bonus. That is revenue that you didn't expect. That's incoming funds that you didn't expect. And sometimes those are easier to give because your day-to-day financial picture is already kind of accounted for. So that's another thing to consider. When you have an increase, let's say your paycheck is now $50 a pay period bigger. Maybe you have $50 a pay period that you could give to the causes that matter to you. The other thing that I want to share with you is when we take kind of a zoom out of this day-to-day saving, when we really look at big picture saving and making large gifts, there ends up being strategies that we can assess over multiple years. So if you're a financial nerd like I am, feel free to check out anything related to a charitable bundling strategy. But let's say, as a potential example, maybe your household, you give $15,000 a year. That's church, that's causes, that's organizations that matter to you. from that $15,000 a year, if you're married, I am not a tax advisor, but a lot of times it's helpful to get into the strategy. Be sure to vet your tax strategies with a tax professional. But if you're giving $15,000 from your household and you're married, that's probably not enough for you to itemize on your taxes and have a taxable benefit. So if you're in a strong cash position, or if you happen to be holding stock or other appreciated assets, you could potentially take multiple years of giving. Instead of giving $15,000 a year, take $45,000 if you've got access to it. You could potentially give it into what is called a donor advised fund. You may be able to take the whole deduction in that tax year, and inside that donor advised fund, you, along with the account custodian, the account holder, you say, hey, maybe we should direct $50 a month to these causes, or maybe we should direct a one-time gift to a set cause. And as you do that, you potentially take the deduction on the way into the donor advised fund in 1 year. So you may itemize your taxes in that 1 year. You may be able to pull in mortgage interest and state and local taxes, things like that, for a bigger itemized deduction. And then in the next year, you give straight from your donor advised fund, maybe that same amount, that same $15,000 that you would have given otherwise. So the benefit there is that theoretically, you may then have a bigger gap between what you would have itemized and the standard deduction. So bringing out a little bit more value in your gift overall. Some really cool features of a donor advised fund. Most custodians, they have options for investing inside a donor advised fund. So if that donor advised fund grows based on its investments, you've got more to give from. You have a bigger pot. There's also some really cool features, if you want to get into the weeds, of being able to appoint other advisors, especially after you pass, being able to set other folks that would be able to give from your pot. A lot of times people use donor advised funds to set long-term multi-year strategies, or they could liquidate at death through nonprofit beneficiaries. So there's a lot of different tools here to really consider. How do we give? If we are giving on a regular, ongoing basis, maybe we don't know who we want to direct those dollars to yet. We just know we want to practice being charitable. Sometimes a donor advised fund is a great vehicle for that. You can put your money straight in the donor advised fund. It is given. You do not have access or control of that. You can't pull money out to cover car repairs or something like that. But when you find a cause that really matters to you, you have a pot that you could direct from. So sometimes that is people find they want to put money into a donor advised fund on an ongoing basis, and they just want to be open to whatever opportunity there might be to give a more significant gift. So maybe you're waiting for that ask about a capital campaign or a purchase from one of your favorite nonprofits, or next time Midlands Gives or the like comes around, you could be the one that sets up the match because you have been putting that money aside through a donor advised fund for a while. Great information. I see a question. So donor advised funds, they come in different forms. So a lot of times a donor advised fund may be opened with a financial advisor. A lot of times they're advised either by an attorney or a tax attorney or other tax professional. So that's a good question. The accountants, I think, seem to have not all accountants refer to donor advised funds all that often. I think they're underused tools, under leveraged tools. I think what's challenging about a donor advised fund is that the gifts that you put in are typically tracked on the calendar year. So you have to do it before you know what your final earnings may be and kind of beat that December 31st time window. And I feel like that navigation is often hard for accountants that have lots of clients that all are dealing with the same timelines all at once. So that's a good question. Another thing that I just want to share, the market has been really wild. If you have found that you were invested in the market and you've been in what we call a non-qualified position, just an individual investment account or a joint investment account, you may find that if you bought Tesla a few years ago, that even with the market correction, the state that it's been in 2022, you may find you have a position, you own a stock that has appreciated quite a bit. It has a low cost basis. So when you sell it, you are expected to be responsible for capital gains taxes. One of the strategies for giving is that if you want to make a sizable gift direct to an organization, that organization should be able to receive those securities as a gift. And the expectation is the donation, the value of that donation is potentially tax deductible if you itemize. It is also you're passing on a capital gains liability that nonprofits aren't responsible for. So a nonprofit would be able to liquidate that position. And if it's a 501c3, the expectation is that they don't pay capital gains. So you got the deduction for the whole gift and nobody paid taxes on it. And that's kind of cool. You're able to leverage your giving in a bigger way. If you find that there's an organization or you don't have an organization that you want to gift shares like that, or potentially even cryptos if they can receive them, cryptocurrencies. If you don't have an organization that is set to receive a large amount, or you don't want to give, you want to give a large amount all at once, or you want to deduct, or you want to release a gift all at once, but you may not want to direct it all at once, then a donor advised fund can be a great way to receive that appreciated stock, could potentially receive real estate, could potentially receive cryptocurrencies, could receive lots of things that have appreciated. The advised fund would liquidate that position, and then you don't have control over that money anymore, but you may be able to direct those resources to the causes that matter to you. So there ends up being kind of layers to this strategy. And it really starts with how do you want to give? What impact do you want to make with the organizations that matter to you? Do you want to give a little bit on an ongoing basis? Then budget for it, plan for it, make it a priority, do it automatically. Do you want to build a charitable pot that you could make a lifelong impact through, or you want to make a multi-generational impact through? There's lots of tools to do that. Donor advised funds are just one. And again, not recommending any particular tools. I don't know y'all well enough to make specific recommendations, but it might be a tool in your tool chest that you could leverage a little bit better. I know that we're coming close on time, so I want to not take on a whole new concept without enough time to do that.
Yeah, sorry, real quick, we can start questions around
Sure.
11 and everything. So you got a few minutes.
Okay. Another thing to think about is potentially if you savvy yourself and an investor, you have a lot of confidence in particular stocks. You could purchase positions in those stocks. You could treat that as that this is charitable down the road. You could invest now with the plan of donating those shares to an organization once those shares have performed a little bit. It's a bit of a different strategy, but it's something that for folks that really are into stock picking, that they can do. There's particular stocks that we can never set an expectation. I don't have a crystal ball on what stock prices will do. But I can say if you're looking for growth stocks, then you would be able to potentially invest, not have dividends that may be taxable to you in the meantime, and then be able to give the appreciated stock at the end. So just another concept to consider. You can give directly. You can do that on an ongoing basis. You can save and invest on your own on an ongoing basis with the intent of giving those funds. You could give into a donor advised fund and have that value grow until you're ready to release it to organizations of your choosing. There's options. The important piece is knowing what your goal is and kind of charting that course towards those options to have the biggest benefit for the organization, and also potentially benefit on the tax side in your own household while you go. It's not the primary goal, but if you're going to do it, you should do it well. Right. I will, if we can open questions a little bit earlier. There's a lot of the other really big underappreciated resource for charitable giving is really once you start hitting 70 and a half with retirement accounts, there ends up being a whole different strategy there with qualified charitable distributions. And there's not enough time to peel that whole onion, but I'll at least say it out loud. You could potentially be giving into a pre-tax position, a traditional IRA balance, and then use that for your charitable pot once you reach when the IRS says you can do that. There's limits, there's rules, and there may be a really long time horizon, but there is a lot of really cool work that you can do on behalf of your charities, especially if you're saving well, the organization that you work for is generous in their contributions to an IRA or 401k. You can really get a lot of bang for your buck on the charitable side well down the road.
Hey, Robbi, it's Susan McPherson. This is great information to know and always keeps us thinking. I'm not 70 and a half yet, but I'm asking for others who maybe want to tell this story. When you are working with a nonprofit to make a charitable contribution, like into your 70 years, do you work with the organization's attorneys or accountants, or do you just work with the, say, director of giving and let that be? How does that work?
The contact person is always different, and the way that you direct your gifts is different. So from a donor advised fund, the donor advised fund, generally, they'll directly cut a check if they want to, and they'll send it to the organization, and they'll share what information you want shared as the person who's advising the donor advised fund. Sorry, go ahead. Did you have a
I was
follow-up?
just gonna say, I was just curious because there's so many more organizations now who are writing out saying, hey, put us in your will. Consider us for your afterlife and keep making a difference. So I was just curious about that, because that seems to be, in addition to a monthly focus, it's trying to go after that lifetime savings.
That's exactly right. There's a lot more tax flexibility before someone has passed, though. So that in an estate plan and making sure that you're addressing the causes that matter to you as a legacy, there's considerations for that for sure. Some tools are less efficient to give to human heirs, and those are great to give to nonprofits. And we get into a lot of weeds with lots of different account types, but in really broad strokes, annuities are often better for charitable organizations. Pre-tax dollars are often better for charitable organizations, and then raw balances are better for people. Real estate, often better for people. Individual investment accounts, often better for people, because they get stepped up cost basis so far, unless the tax code gets adjusted. So there's a ton of strategy there for sure.
Right. Absolutely. You sure perk my interest, but for the best thing is to make sure that you do it before you leave, so that you make sure it's done right. So to all you young folks on the call, I'm a recycled teenager, but please, I encourage you, take care of your life estates, your plan and your will and all those things now, so that you take care of it and save your families from having to take care of that when you leave.
Absolutely.
Just a word of advice.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and please, anyone else who's interested in asking a question, please jump in either in the chat or, just unmute to ask your question. But, Robbi, I think you kind of brought up something that I hadn't really thought about before, because one, I know very little about financial things, FYI, but two, I would say that my giving currently is in a state of kind of, I would say, randomness based upon Midlands Gives, or based upon, outreach from people, or just, a cause that I felt, really passionate at that time. And so I am, I guess what question one would be, what are the steps that someone should take who's looking to make, giving a little more consistent? and everything. You touched on some things at the beginning, but then too, that, you know, to give in a way, to think through some things, to give in a way that's beneficial for both parties, that it's not just that when you start getting into these, you know, kind of more, I guess, complicated ways of giving, I guess you could say, that you want to be sure that you're also giving in a way that is beneficial for the organization, that not everything is just maybe neat and tidy, I guess.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, real estate is kind of the big example. If you leave real estate to a nonprofit, they may find that very inconvenient. They're often not set up to receive and liquidate real estate. So they end up with a bigger question. I mean, there's a lot on the nonprofit side. I'm not sure if you've got folks that come from the nonprofit world, but on the nonprofit side of things, I mean, having major gift policy and how you treat those major gifts is really important. Having a receiving account for what you'll do with gifted stocks is important. But being prepared for that, I think a lot of times nonprofits, I mean, they're doing really important work. And unless you have a dedicated person that's really on the development side and they're just managing those donor relationships, I think nonprofits end up missing out on opportunities for larger gifts because they're busy, first of all, and second, because they're not always sure how to ask or how to receive when those gifts do come along. So I think it makes sense to be prepared and to expect it. Just change the way that you're thinking. I think the same is true on the giving side, is that if we set real targets for, I want to give $100 a month or to 3 causes, I'm going to pick 3 places, or I'm going to pick 2, and then the third one I'm going to be flexible with each month. When we set real targets like that and budget for it, it's so much more likely to happen. I mean, it's the adage that is very worn out, but never ceases to be true, where if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You're not going to reach your giving targets if you never set one. For not for better, but just for worse, for you missing out on those opportunities to participate, and for the organizations that you care about missing out on your support. What other questions you got? Thank you, Susan. We had a small window. I wanted to alert folks of some tools make you more dangerous, so that you can have a bigger impact on your goals. It really comes down to an individual strategy, though, and that part is can't be overlooked. Of what's your position now? Do you have a place that you can give? How do you want to do that? What's the way to structure that the most effectively for the organization and for you?
Right. And it's great advice coming from an HR background and working with employees of all ages for many years. That's one of the things that they will plan their week, they'll plan their vacation, but they don't plan their hereafter. So I think it's very, very timely and great information, especially as the world's changing right now. You need to make those plans.
Yeah, absolutely. I think each passing day, I think there's louder and clearer calls for how much we need to look out for our communities and how much we need to look out for each other and serve each other. And nonprofits are doing the work. I don't have to reinvent the wheel somewhere. I can find a cause that is doing good work and be supportive.
Right.
And there's power in that as long as we use it.
And it makes such a major difference. So thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank you, Renee. Appreciate that. Good job.
So glad to be here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Robbi. And yeah, I dropped Robbi's contact info in the chat, so please reach out to him or find him on the Thrivent site, and you can schedule a time to talk with him if you would like to do so. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing some of these insights. I feel more motivated to give and also to dive a little deeper into some smart ways of doing so.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Poonam, I see you. I know you. Hey.
Hey, Robbi.
How's it going?
Fun
Good
fact,
morning.
Robbi and I went to high school together.
We did
Good,
indeed.
Another
A bunch of us from L Town.
That's right. good to see you here.
Good to be here.
Well, thank you all for joining our session. And this kind of closes out the year for us with our programming for LCAA. But we will certainly be in touch about, well, you'll see some of us at graduation. To all of those who are about to graduate, congratulations. And so we'll see you at graduation or another event after the summer and everything. So y'all have a good rest of your day. Thank you.